So we have four lady musician singers, three of whom are here. Have a seat. And my job is to kind of just keep things going. So, and I think we'll just go one after another, starting with Molly Healey. So tell us about yourself and how you got started in the business, and I'll ask you a few questions.
All right. Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me. I'm Molly Healey, and thanks. I just want to say thank you for having me, you guys. It's a real pleasure to be speaking tonight. I'm very honored that you guys would consider me worthy of speaking up here to you guys, and worthy of being at least moderately important in keeping Ozarks music alive. So, I grew up in Jeff City, and I'm 42. I went to high school in Jeff City, and I guess the beginning of my musical career was really from birth. My parents were both very musical, and in a classical tradition. My father was J. Patrick Healey, and he conducted the Jefferson City Cantorum up in Jeff City for most of his adult life. He started it and conducted it until his death approximately 10 years ago. So I was in that choir, so was my mom, and so was my brother. And so we had a rich musical tradition of singing in our family. He also played a whole slew of instruments, so I guess the apple doesn't fall far from the tree there because I am a multi-instrumentalist myself. He also was the conductor of the Jefferson City Symphony for a short time, and an incredibly well-respected member of the musical community in Jeff City, and I was always really proud to be his daughter. After I went to high school, I decided that after years of singing and a little bit of experience playing the violin, that I would put the violin down and I wanted to be on Broadway. So, yeah, I did. I was very interested in performing in shows such as Les Mis or Wicked, or a lot of those kinds of shows that maybe didn't require as much dancing, because I was not a good dancer, but I still thought that there was hope for me that my singing and my acting could somehow push me through. So I decided to get involved in the musical theater program here at MSU, or it was SMS at the time. And I moved down here, and I did so, and I was really involved with theater here for about 2 years. And I was in a couple of Landers productions, the first production of Secret Garden that we did, I was in that, and a bunch of productions at the college. And I was not playing violin at all at this time. I never thought I would pick it up again. And at the end of my freshman year, my academic advisor, or my department advisor, pulled me into his office, as he does with everybody at the end of the program, and sat me down and said, "So, what are your hopes and dreams? What do you want to do with your degree?" I said, "Well, I want to move to New York, and I want to, become a singer on Broadway." And he pretty much looked me in the eye and told me it wasn't going to happen. It kind of devastated me, and I'm still conflicted to this day as to whether or not really he should have told one of his students that, but I think I feel pretty good about it now. It wasn't the only reason that I quit musical theater. It was one of many. I did decide that trying to go into a career with only 2/3 of what you needed to be successful, and if you have 3 of those things, it's cutthroat at best. I figured that was not really the best thing, and I also decided that my acting wasn't really so great either, and I thought the only thing that I was really doing it for was the music. So that's when I jumped in. full force into music. I started getting involved in the choir. I was president of the MSU Concert Chorale for a while. We toured all over Europe, and Dr. Webb is still one of my favorite teachers to date. I don't know if anyone here knows or remembers him, but he was really influential in my singing career. And somewhere around my sophomore or junior year, I started going and seeing a lot of live music, and particularly at the bar next door. Anybody remember that? All right. One of my favorite places to go see music. And there was a bluegrass band there, and their name was Back and to the Left. And I went up to boldly one night after maybe one or two cocktails, one of the members, and said, "If you need a fiddle player, I'm your woman." And I had not played the fiddle in over 5 years, and I wasn't very good when I stopped. So it was definitely the alcohol talking that night, and I came home and woke up the next morning and immediately regretted my decision because, of course, they had no violin player, and as most bluegrass bands who don't have one, they're always like, "Yes, we need a violin player. Come to the next show." And so it got real at that point, and my friend Kristen came over and said, "You need to go to this rehearsal." And I said, "I don't think I'm going to do it. I haven't played my violin in so long." She goes, "You just need to do it." And she about pushed me out the door, and I showed up at the first rehearsal for that. It was a little rocky, kind of getting reintroduced to this instrument that had basically not been out of its case in 5+ years. But fortunately, the guys in Back and to the Left were so wonderful. Brandon Moore, Marcus Chapman, John Anderson, and, no, John wasn't in the band at the time, but were very, very warm and welcoming, and they had me up, and I cut my teeth on stage with my fiddle. And then over the next few years, I started performing with bands like Barefoot Revolution. And then shortly after that, I got my teaching degree, thinking that I would probably do this as a living teaching and just doing music on the side. And right about the time I finished that degree, I had my baby, Annabelle, who is now 15. And so this is all so long ago. And then right about the time I had my baby was when I started sitting in with Big Smith, who is going to be, I guess, one of the featured guests coming up this fall. And I joined that band, and I was their fiddle player for 5 years. And when that band disbanded, I decided that I was going to try to go back into teaching. And right about the time that happened, I decided that I was just going to try to make a living performing, because I did a little bit of substitute teaching and discovered I was very poor at teaching in the classroom. Pretty much solidifying my hunch that really the only thing that I'm good at in life is performing music. And I also had a little private studio going at that time. I still do. I still teach lessons, violin and cello, and I teach over at the acoustic shop. In 2015, I recorded my first solo album, and I now have 3 albums in my name, and I'm still writing a lot of songs, hopefully going to get another EP out this year. And then I guess probably the most important thing to talk about besides that is the fact that I'm organizing the 50th anniversary of Earth Day Festival here in town. I believe a lot of you heard me talking about that back in the fall. Thank you.
Headlined by a band that you also play with from time to time.
Yeah, I guess I probably should mention the Ozark Mountain Daredevils. I would have, I think, eventually gotten to that with the lineup, but yeah, the Daredevils happened right when Big Smith disbanded, and I was just a guest musician for a while, and then the guest appearances started happening on shows that I wasn't already there, and then half of a set turned into 3/4 of a set, turned into the whole set. And then last year, sometime, they said they want me on full-time with the band. So I am super proud to be touring now with the Ozark Mountain Daredevils as they approach their 50th anniversary next year.
Talk a little bit about your three CDs that you released in the last 3 years, Nightbirds, Human, and your most recent one, Circles, and including, you play violin, you play cello, you play guitar, but for your violin and cello playing, tell us about looping and your looping musicianship.
Absolutely, be happy to. So I watched a YouTube video sometime back in 2014, and I saw a violin player that was accompanying a slam poet, and she was doing looping, and she was making her violin sound like an ethereal violin, but also like a bass, and also like percussion, and I just thought, that is so cool. And I hadn't heard of looping before, but basically what you do is it's a pedal, it's really more of a computer than a pedal, but a computer with foot switches. But it allows you to record yourself live, and then it plays it back, and you keep playing over it, and it records when you want it to. But you can build all of these wonderful layers and do it all live. You don't have to pre-record anything, unlike some people probably think is what happens. And so I got that machine, and I had my first 2 songs written in about 3 days. It just really worked with me. My classical upbringing, one of my favorite composers was Bach, and the way he wrote was counterpoint, and I just really resonated with that. It just means several lines going together at one time, but not necessarily like block chords. I really, really resonated with that, and I recorded my first album pretty quickly after that. It was out in 2015, and that was just me and my bass player. And then with Human, the sophomore album, we added drums and guitar. And then with Circles, this most recent one, it's rounded out with a full band experience. All tracks have drums and guitar. And special guest Bernie Sisters were on that album. And it's just really progressed to a full orchestral rock sound, is what we're going for.
Another group, the Lacewings, you and Liz Carney, talk
Yes.
about that just briefly.
Liz Carney, she formerly Belladonna, and now Isabel Crane. She performs solo now as Isabel Crane. And myself are the Lacewings, and we are just a girl, we call it witchy folk duo. We got to play, it's pretty dark, but it seems to fit for us. We just got done playing at Roots and Blues last year in Columbia, and we just finished a tour just this last weekend.
Let's move on down the line to Chris
Okay.
Palmer. Chris?
Well, I gotta follow that. I am not touring with the Ozark Mountain Daredevils, by the way. Just a heads up.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks for having me, by the way.
Okay, so, thanks for being here.
Yeah.
We'll talk about other than the Ozark Mountain Daredevils in a little bit here, but tell us about yourself a little bit first, where you're from and education and how you came up through the business.
Okay, there's a lot of things we can't talk about right now, so we're gonna skip to my little bit. I started singing when I was super little. First recording was when I was like 3 years old or something. My little brother used to go to sleep to it when he'd go to bed. It was kind of funny. But yeah, I was singing ever since I was little. My parents are extremely musical. My mom kind of taught me how to sing harmonies in car rides, with Bonnie Raitt in the background. You know how in the future you kind of look back and you realize there's certain traits and certain behaviors you had as a child, and you're like, I just thought I was a weirdo, And I guess I used to study voices. I didn't realize that's what I was doing, but I had fascinations with certain sounds and certain voices, and like just trying to figure out how they would do all that stuff. Like Phoebe Snow, what the heck? Like, is she? I think she's an alien, but she's incredible, and I would play her over and over and over again. So, and this was like at 6 years old, 5 or 6 years old. So I always had this fascination with singing and voices. My mother convinced me at one point to learn piano. I do not play piano, by the way. I played for about 6 years, hated it. I realized that I only learned to play so that I didn't have to hear the notes on the sheet music. Once I mastered what it was, I didn't need the notes. I didn't need the sound anymore. Does that make sense? So it's like I could look at the sheet, know the note. I didn't have to hear it. And as soon as I could do that, I didn't understand the purpose of needing fingers on a keyboard anymore. So I kind of got rid of that. I've kind of thought maybe I should have kept doing that, but one of the things that I really enjoy with what I've done over the years is collaborating with others. I feel like a lot of my life is drifting from energy to energy based on who I need to write songs with. You know what I mean? Or who needs me to front something, or who do I need to perform with next, or what it is. I always feel like that's kind of leading me by the nose. The music always has done that, I think.
A Springfield native, right?
Yes, I actually grew up here, graduated from Glendale, was in music the whole time, did all the little competitions at state, got to go stand up and audition and be terrified for, a day and a half.
And it says here on my cheat sheet, lineage goes back to the Weaver brothers in Elvira. Tell us about that.
Well, yeah, you know how families are. They tell you, well, hey, you really had no choice. You had no choice. You're from a lineage that goes way back. I actually, hillbilly fame in vaudeville, the Elvira and the Weaver brothers. I don't know if you're familiar, but it's my understanding Weaver Road out here has a little bit of something to do with them. But our family goes way, way back, and they were a huge black and white silent film stars. They were on vaudeville everywhere. They have, I don't know if they performed at the White House or they performed for when one of the presidents were coming through on their, little political tour, for the election, which is what we're getting ready, the nightmare's getting ready to begin. So, for us here soon. Well, it's kind of already done it, but, yeah, they were great. They were great.
Army veteran?
I am. After high school, I didn't want to go to college. I'm not a school person. I have a real hard time sitting still and shutting up. I was in the hallway a lot.
Where did that take you, the Army?
Well, the Army, I was in military intelligence. My parents are very surprised by my scores, by the way, on my testing. My mother just kind of looked at the recruiter like, are you sure you have the right numbers there? What's happening? Yeah, I was very surprised as well. I was like, oh, wow, I actually get to choose something. This is all you can do. No, I was great. I wanted to be a helicopter pilot, actually, and my eyes were terrible. I couldn't do it, so that didn't happen. So I was stationed at Fort Bragg in the Army, and I signed up for 3. I did my 3. They wanted me to stay. I would never leave Fort Bragg because of the job I had. And at 20 years old, I couldn't convince myself to stay in Fayetteville for another 20 plus years. I couldn't do it. So I came home and went to college. Kind of.
And joined a production, Jesus Christ Superstar, right?
Yeah, went to college for 5 minutes, hated it. Realized that I didn't necessarily want to do the Broadway thing. It was too disciplined and insane, so that didn't work out at all. And shortly after that, I had my son. It was a gentleman that I had met in the Army. We had been together for like 8 years or something stupid. And had a baby. He was magic. And about a year after that, I went back to school for a few minutes, and I was actually doing really good. And I got involved in Jesus Christ Superstar at the Landers here in Springfield Little Theater. And it was the first time I'd actually auditioned for any major role, and I got Mary Magdalene right off the bat. Now, what's significant about this is that I feel like my musical path was created when I was about 4 years old. And my dad used to break out the Jesus Christ Superstar album cover. He used to keep his weed in.
Oops.
There's a reason I love weed, too. It's okay. It's okay. No. So he'd pull it out, roll it, put the album on, let it play, and from that moment on, I knew at some point I had to play Mary. I had to. I had to. It was great. Judas was my favorite, though, if that gives you any idea. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bands you played with. Tell us about
There's
those.
a lot
Okay,
of them.
well, we've got time.
TOC back in the 90s. I started a band called Pet back in the 90s. Granny's Bathwater, Pearl Nation.
Dropouts.
The Dropouts. Oh, my goodness. I've sat in with everybody. Probably.
Everybody but the Ozark Mountain Daredevils.
I know. We're going to have to talk to Nick and John about this.
But you got to sing with the Granny's Bathwater
I
Reunion,
did.
which is
just
right
a blast.
up there, I'd say, yeah.
A couple of those. Yeah, he's over here. But yeah, no, my parents, growing up, my mother was obsessed with Granny's Bathwater and obsessed with the Daredevils. And we're friends with John and Nick and all those guys and Rule and all of them. And I had an opportunity, I actually worked with John Dillon in the late 90s after I got out of the military and did a couple demos and stuff like that with John, and he's a hoot and a half, so that was a good time. But that's my Daredevil story.
Yeah, okay.
That's all I got.
And Pearl, tell us about Pearl.
Pearl is a 12-year love child of, we actually had original music too. I've done several original bands. Nappy's Joint was one, Mississippi Mojo was another. Kane and I actually wrote some music for Pearl Nation as well, but we were mainly known as a cover band, big party band. We were, I don't know, all over the place for 12 years. My God, you couldn't go to one of those big festivals without going, oh, they're here again, like what's happening? But yeah, no, big party band, good times.
Other bands you played with?
Famous stuff, I guess. Zach Brown Band. We, as Nappy's Joint, used to tour with Zach. And Morris Day and the Time we opened up for as Nappy's Joint as well, and the SOS Band, and just some old school fun stuff. Yeah.
And how about these days? What are you doing?
Oh my God. Okay, y'all ready? All right. I've got a new band called The Sauce. Just marinate on that for a second. Yeah. It's coming, y'all. It's coming. Y'all don't even know. No, we're throwing it back. We're doing 70s, 80s now, just a little bit of everything, but it's going to have more of a groove, a little bit more adult than some of the other stuff you see around. Also, I am working with the Veracruz group, so I also teach. I do vocal production, vocal lessons, vocal coach. I also do, for instance, if you're wanting to, there's a lot of people around here that want their kids to audition for The Voice and stuff like that, right? So I kind of help with artist development and getting people ready that way as well. But yeah, I've got a podcast coming, not on radio anymore. They couldn't handle me. It's okay. It's all right. Trying to be all controversial and stuff, whatever. They didn't like it.
Pass that microphone to your left to Brenda Meyers and let's talk to her.
Give it up for Brenda.
Hi, I'm Brenda Meyer. I have the Brenda Meyer Band here in Springfield, Missouri. And I love my, what I'm going to call my hometown here in Springfield, Missouri. I've been here playing locally for about 12 years with my partner, Burl Williams. And I've had the opportunity to play with several very talented musicians in my band. And before that, I started playing music when I was 12. And I didn't, don't get nervous, I didn't bring a slideshow or any home movies or anything like that. Anyway, my inspiration, I guess, for playing music was my aunt and uncle had a band when I was 12. She was a child prodigy on the Hammond organ and played for the Lawrence Welk show when she was 8 years old. She married the owner's son of the Hammond organ studio in Rochester, Minnesota. I am from Rochester, Minnesota. And so they had this band. My uncle had a band, and I would go listen to them rehearse. That was the first time I have ever heard live music. when I was 12 or heard a live band. And my Aunt Nancy would take me to their rehearsals and then take me to the shows that they would play. They opened for national acts in Rochester, like the Four Seasons, a few other bands, Question Mark and the Mysterians. I don't know if anybody remembers that.
96 Tears, yeah, okay.
At the Armory in Rochester, Minnesota. I was 13, and it was the coolest deal. He had a leather jacket on, and it had a question mark on the back of his jacket that was in neon lights that would go like this, you know. And it was very cool, and I was like, this is so cool. So when I'd go to listen to them rehearse, I would watch the drummer, and I'm like, I want to do that. I want to be a drummer. My family always wanted me, of course, to be a keyboard player, like you, and I couldn't get it. But anyway, I knew that I was going to be a drummer. And so I got my first drum set when I was 14, and I started working at it. Then my dad had some friends that had a polka band. And in Minnesota, that's a big deal. They had huge dance floors and the polka bands, and they would pack the polka halls every Saturday night. They'd wear their little outfits and everything. And Dad said, these guys need a drummer. And I'm like, really? It's really not my bag, you know. But so I did it. But I tell you what, really, it was the best way that I learned tempo and meter in that band. It was the best experience for me to learn how to keep a steady rhythm. And so I did that in my junior and senior high years in high school. And after that, I would go out to the clubs. And back then they had a musicians union, and you paid your dues. And if you were a musician, you could go and sit in a specific place in these nightclubs, and you could sit in with the bands. So I started doing that. These bands would have me come up, and I'd play drums, and they'd go, wow, how old are you? And I'd say, I'm 17 right now. They're like, well, keep it up. And I did. And so after I graduated, I got a job with a touring band and moved to Fort Wayne, Indiana with a touring band. We played a house band 4 nights a week, and it was packed every night. And then we would tour and play the Indiana tri-state area. And back then, you could play and make a living 5 nights a week in a club. 5 nights a week. We would tour and stay in, say for instance, Virginia, Parkersburg, Virginia, and we'd stay for 2 weeks. And people would take us in like family, and we got to know a lot of people. But you could work 5 nights a week and make a living playing music. Things have changed. But that's okay. I'm still playing music, and I will always play music. While I lived in Fort Wayne, I had the opportunity to work with the Indiana State Fiddle Champions 5 years running, and we toured and opened for national acts. I was then 20 years old. We opened for Alabama, and our manager at the time was able to get us a ride on their executive helicopter. And that was really great. It was so fun. And that was just a perk. And just one of the things, I opened for Leon Russell in Fort Wayne, Indiana. I played drums for June Carter Cash and got to stand up front and hold her hand and sing "Will the Circle Be Unbroken." It was amazing, the most amazing thing I think that ever happened, touching her and holding her hand. But anyway, I get emotional about it, but still. So I traveled a lot, opened for Ronnie Millsap, several other. I started out playing country music, actually. I didn't start playing the blues until I moved here to Springfield, Missouri, and that was in 1992. And I've been here ever since. I love Missouri. Started playing the blues about 12 years ago when I met my partner, Burl Williams. And we started going to Ritter Springs to the blues jams. Most fun I've ever had. That was so much fun. And they played the blues music. I had never played blues music. But when I listened to it, I was like, I loved the feeling. I loved the feeling of that music, the way it touched me. And I just started going to the jams there every month. And we put together a blues band, and I started playing blues music. The thing I think I loved about it the most was the people that I met. And so there's some of you in here tonight. I've made so many wonderful friendships playing the blues music. And I've had so many really wonderful experiences. And have met so many great musicians. It's just been amazing, really. And started a band with Burl, and we play locally. We play out of town some. I've been to Memphis to the International Blues Challenge, and I've just had many wonderful experiences. I've opened for some national acts here as well, and I just have a great time and meet really wonderful people, and that's what it's all about is you people right out here that come to the shows, support live music, and I just love to touch people.
We'll have questions here in a minute.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So here just recently, like I said, I've played with so many talented musicians. I've been very fortunate to have the musicians that have been in my band. I loved every one of them. And 2 years ago, my kids grew up. They made it. I made it, and they made it.
So tell us about your band now and who's in your band.
Yes. So 2 years ago, my son, who has grown up listening to music, playing music, I can't tell you how many rehearsals they've been to, how many shows they've had to go to. He's a talented bass player, trumpet player, guitar player, and a drummer. And he learned all these instruments proficiently. And he married a young lady that has the most amazing voice and is very talented and plays percussion now in my band. So I have my son on the bass guitar, my daughter-in-law on vocals and percussion, and my grandson Gavin on the drums, and Burl Williams, the love of my life, Burl Williams. And so we are a family tradition now. And I never thought that would ever happen to me. And they're very talented musicians. And so from now until we retire, which I hope is not anytime soon, I want to play music and entertain people for as long as I can do it. And so very appreciative of everyone who has supported us, and we do really appreciate you so much.
Thank you. Oh, okay, Molly, back to you. Just for each of you, tell us like at least one or maybe several of your most memorable experiences in the music business.
Wow. Well, you know, the earliest ones of singing with my dad are probably the most influential. So those are probably the most special, singing in his choir. He died 10 years ago, and so I still think of those really fondly. The first time I played with the Daredevils, that was pretty cool. That was very surreal. And then the first time, honestly, that I walked on stage with that violin after not having really touched it for 5 years is probably one of the ones that sticks out the most as being not the best performance, but, probably one of the most memorable, honestly, in my head.
And how about the furthest away from Missouri you played?
China, yeah.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
With?
Andy Frasco in the UN. I went there as their fiddle player there.
Chris, how about you? Memorable.
Memorable and influential, I would have to say. Probably, I did a little Disney song when I was 13. It was terrible. Okay. It was my first huge studio experience. It was pretty funny. It was this huge room. Okay, I'm 13, okay? Like, I look like a boy with, like, a weird Prince haircut. And I'm standing in this huge studio, big glass window opening at the top. Mic comes down from the ceiling. There's enough room for, like, an orchestra behind me. I am sitting in this huge room. Never done this before. I start singing. I'm singing a duet for a movie I think was called Best Foot Forward. It was when Disney Europe first started, and it was straight to VHS. Yeah, it was big stuff. So I'm singing, just singing. All of a sudden, the entire studio is rushed with people, just people coming from everywhere. I can't figure this thing out. I'm kind of, I'm like, what is going on? I'm seeing this big room fill. All of a sudden, the music stops and no one's talking to me. So I'm just kind of standing there, just kind of waiting. Well, apparently, the producer of the song had the whole studio sound from what I was doing in there playing throughout the entire establishment. And apparently, at 13, I sounded like a very experienced Joan Jett. Because literally the entire place was like, where is she? Oh my God, it sounds just like her. What's going on? So all of a sudden I'm having to explain how I am not Joan Jett. But thank you very much. Yeah, that was very memorable. I realized I was terrified of huge studio rooms, but really actually loved it deep down. Lou Whitney. I don't know if y'all remember Lou. Lou was my second studio experience. So now you guys can gauge where the love of all of that has come from. He was just a special human being. The Jesus Christ Superstar experience was probably motivated me only because I then knew that stage is where I needed to be. Everything else changed after that. And it was at that point that, kind of like yourself, I think I'll be singing till I'm dead. You know what I mean? Playing in front of 12,000 people at a huge show that I did in Atlanta and Centennial Park, huge with Nappy's Joint, huge show that we did here for Rockin' Ribs. I think it was in front of like 8,000 or 9,000 people as Pearl. That was a good time. Played at the Shrine again, huge. I love playing with big energy. It's just one of the most amazing feelings in the world is to be up there and just, giving it. But yeah, I would say those are probably the tops right now. I'm looking forward to what's coming. I plan on getting my mom on stage at some point. Well, it used to be Patricia Shepard. She went to Parkview, married Gary Palmer, my father, back in the early 70s. I'll be 50 this year. Ooh, shoot me. Yeah, it's a thing. It's okay. I get it. It's whatever. Pat Robinson now, or Pat Bowman, most recently. But, yeah, that's my mama.
How about Brenda?
What was the question?
I can't remember. It's your question. How?
That tells you how old I am.
Yeah, you don't have to say. Most memorable experiences.
Oh, well, I shared a few of those. I've just had, just really several really fun experiences, especially playing with Burl Williams, because he's quite a character, aren't you, Burl? Well, we've opened for Tommy Castro. That was pretty awesome, the blues genre. And I've done some traveling, played a lot of fairs and things like that. Like I said, the most memorable experiences with June Carter Cash, but I've had several since I've lived here in Springfield. Just playing out and playing festivals. Stomp the Blues was a really great festival. That was a good time. And that's all I can really come up with there. But
Okay, what's coming up in the future? Where can we see you next?
yeah, there you go. Well, March the 14th, we will be at Carrie's from 8 to 12. That is also my birthday, March the 14th. So that's going to be fun in itself. And also the Blues Society of the Ozarks here is going to have their monthly social. So there will be like 2 events in one, so I'm very excited about that. It's going to be a really great time. Might have a couple people sitting in and joining us on the stage. And that'll be March 14th at 8 o'clock.
Okay, Chris, how about you? What's coming up?
Well, the debut of the Sauce is going to be April 25th at Shuffle. We're going to have an opener, except thinking of having the refugees come. And it's either going to be them, it's between them and a couple other bands we've been talking to, so we'll know a little bit closer to the date. But right now, we're really looking forward to that. Also, if you guys are on social media, I'm going to be pushing the page and getting it all set up and stuff, too. So if you see events or something, please share, and I'd love to see everybody out. It's going to be a lot of fun, everything from, like, oh my gosh, believe it or not, it's going to have the Police, which nobody plays, and some old school, oh my gosh, Phil Collins, and oh my gosh, Michael McDonald, and a little bit of Doobie Brothers in there. So it should be a good time. Looking forward to it. Oh, little Fleetwood Mac, maybe. Yeah, good times.
Thank you. How about you, Molly?
April 25th. It's actually not a conflict, though, because my festival for Earth Day is from 12 until roughly 7:30. That festival is really important to me. We are, it's the 50th anniversary of Earth Day itself, and it's a plastic-free, leave no trace music and sustainability festival, and we are charging admission to the festival, and all of the ticket proceeds are going to benefit our 3 local environmental organizations, the James River Basin Partnership, the Watershed Committee, and Ozark Greenways. And so it's very exciting. The Ozark Mountain Daredevils are headlining, so I'll be playing with the Daredevils at 6:30 p.m. that night. Bill's over there, he's going to be playing too. And then, but my solo project, my band, also known as the Molly Healey Band, I did not get very creative with that one. We'll be playing at roughly 3 or 3:30 that day as well. So I'm very excited about that. It's at Mother's Brewing Company, and you can get tickets online at our website or on Facebook. If you just search Earth Day 2020, the festival in Springfield, Missouri, put that in your toolbar, you can go to our various links. And I believe tickets are also on sale on the Mother's website as well. But it's only $20, and you get 9 bands, including the Ozark Mountain Daredevils, which I will say the Ozark Mountain Daredevils tickets are always more expensive than that, I do believe. So you get 8 more bands for that, plus a whole day of awesomeness outside.
Thank you. Before we take questions, let's get a round of applause for all 3 of them. Thank you. Questions?
I would like for you women to talk about songwriting. Wait. Shut up. I would like for you women to talk about songwriting, please.
Well, what part of songwriting would you like to know about? I like to collaborate because I feed off the energy that I get from the people that I'm working with. So we've been known to write songs in like 45 minutes or take 3 days to write something, produce it, have it done. Once I'm attached to something, it's like 1,000% go. Like, get it all done. I want it out now. I want to hear it all together right now. Let's do it. And I won't leave the studio, or we won't leave the studio until like it's all there. Because plus, when we were doing our Nappy's Joint album, we were being produced by Zach Brown's people, and we were working at his place, which was kind of nice because it was very secluded. You didn't have to worry about anybody else there. And we had an incredible experience and ended up writing half the album in 3 days. Just sitting and just writing, collaborating, record, write, record, write, record, write, record. It just kind of happens that way. And I think whether you're on your own or with others, it's really about the energy that you're getting at the moment, how it influences what it is that you're doing. And I think some days are more energetic than others, so to speak. So, but yeah, I love my part of it. I really love to collaborate, so that's kind of my deal.
I'm the opposite, actually. I am someone who will hear an entire song in its finished format in my head before anything gets out on paper or anything gets played on a guitar. I don't know what that means or what that. I think everybody's just different. But a lot of the ideas I get from my songs actually come a little bit unconventionally. The surest way for me to get a new idea is to hear something but not hear all of it. So maybe it's in a restaurant and I can only catch like one little line, or maybe it's in somebody's car that's driving by and I can only hear the treble, or maybe I can only hear the bass, I don't know. Or just a snippet of something somewhere, and it will give me the idea that I eventually morph into my own. I think that we're always getting our ideas from what already exists, and then we end up making them our own, and that's what happens to me. So driving in my car is pretty much it's the impetus for a lot of my songs, is just turning off the radio. If you're ever trying to write a song, man, that's the best way to do it, because we're in a society of so many distractions nowadays that it's very rare that if you don't sit down and just turn everything off, that you're going to get any kind of inspiration, So, or at least, I get inspiration from snippets, but when you actually have to sit down and be tasked with finishing an idea, I feel like you really have to turn off those outside distractions, and the car is the best place for me to do that. So I'll speak in my ideas into my little phone, which I actually, everybody curses their smartphones, but the ability to be able to record your ideas while you can't type or play a guitar or do something, to me is just, it's been a godsend. So. And then I write all of the parts and I tell the guys what to play, pretty much.
My inspiration usually hits me about 2 o'clock in the morning. And it wakes me up, and I write it down. Not everything that I've written down has become a song. Not every song that I've written has been done by the band. But I have written 2 original songs that we do in the band that you can hear on Reverb Nation. One's called Mama Told Me, and the other one is called Guitar Slinger, which is about going out to see guitar-driven bands. And so that was pretty fun to write. And I have some others that are just not quite ready until it hits me at about 2 o'clock in the morning. But that's where it comes for me. So
I will mention, if you guys are poking around Reverb Nation or YouTube, if you Google Pearl Nation Springfield or Pearl Springfield, or if you go to Reverb Nation and look up Nappy's Joint, Nappys, or Mississippi Mojo, those are all original stuff that I've written and or collaborated with others on. So a little bit of mix, all kinds of stuff. But yeah, it's out there. I'm anxious to hear what you've got. Feminist, right?
Yeah. I don't really have a question, but I just want to make sure, since we're all music lovers here, everybody knows that on KOZK tonight, American Masters is Chuck Berry.
Ladies, some of my first bands, I always used women in my groups because I always loved the timbre of a woman's voice with the male voice, and it's a fine deal. Back in the day, in the early 60s, late 60s, I had a band called Shorty Dunn, where we had a female singer, and then Tex and the Roadies had a female flute and singer. How do you feel about the music in this area, as far as I've only seen it since the Me Too or since the early 90s, but could you describe how you felt when you first started playing with the rock and rolls and the bands and the men, and how you experienced that?
I'll start. I have been traveling around with boys for the last 25 years of my life as the only girl. I've had a couple of projects with females. I played with Cindy Wolf for a while, and I also now with Liz as the Lace Wings. I am not what you would call, I guess, a feminist, although I think the definition of that word changes every day. I do, in my experience, and I don't know how it compares to others, and I can't speak for other women. I've read about a lot of it, but in my experience, I have always been tremendously respected by the men that I play music with, and I have been forever grateful for that. Not that I think that it should be any other way, and that that's a particularly special thing, because it's not. You should always respect the people that you're playing music with, and I don't think that a woman should have any more or less respect than a man. Yeah, it's just equal. I do see that at times, maybe not with my own experience, but the experience of others, that it can get a little crazy out there. I think probably the most I have to deal with is not necessarily the people I play music with, because like I said, I've been lucky to be playing with the most respectful and the best musicians around. But it's the little things. It's when you're loading out after a gig and being a little concerned about that drunk guy over there in the corner, or having guys immediately come to your rescue with your equipment as if I can't carry it myself. And sometimes that can be endearing but also insulting whenever it's insinuating that I can't handle it somehow. But to me, I think I'm very confident in what I do, and I think that I have tunnel vision in that way. I walk around feeling pretty sure of myself, not arrogantly, but just confident that I can handle. I don't ever sign up for something that I can't handle. And so when I show up to a place, I have that already as my armor, and I think that it's something that has really helped me, honestly, to have that confidence. And yeah, I feel like we're making progress. I feel that there's still a lot to be done. I feel that women are not respected, especially as much in the recording industry and the sound industry, and other facets of music. And it's definitely something when on the charts. I mean, women are still have a ways to go before they are played, heard, and respected as much as the men. We've got a long way to go, but I'm ready to get there.
I'm gonna be heard. I'm just gonna let y'all know now. No, I've always been very rebellious, probably my whole life, so I've always been heard. I've spent a lot of times in the hallways. I spent a lot of time defending myself growing up, so I'm not real good with shutting up. As far as working with other people, I've worked with some of the same people since the early 90s. I mean, the bass player I'm playing with now was in the first band I was in after I got out of the Army. I don't know if y'all have ever heard of James Davis, 6'9", one of the best bass players in town. But we started in a band called TOC, and we're in the Sauce now. He's played with Pearl for years. So I think women with strong personalities do two things. They either become endearing to you or they become annoying to you. If you're annoyed by a strong woman, you might want to check yourself. And the only reason why I say that is because all that does is breed insecurity. I'm a strong person. I've always been a strong person. So usually if someone comes at me funky or whatever, it's, are you okay? Are you okay? Yeah, so, because it takes a lot for me to get to a certain place to where there's conflict involved. Music-wise, Pearl, I've worked with, oh my gosh, so many incredible musicians in this town have either played with us or sat in with us or gone, toured, and ran around with us. I mean, it's just whatever, and I've been blessed. I mean, Sean Mundy, my God, Rico, Richie Allen, some Scott Avery, just some of the, Jimmy James, just some of the best. John Anderson has sat in with us a number of times. Dave Ellis has sat in with us. Reed Herring. Just some really great players over the years, and we've always, if we've ever had conflict, it's usually over the fact that I refuse to sing Britney Spears. I do have standards. Sorry.
That was pretty funny. Anyway, well, back when I first started playing drums in a band, of course, female drummers were never seen. There were no female drummers. I was like the, oh my God, she's a female drummer, and I spent years getting that comment also, but I was very respected as a musician and playing the drums. Now you see a lot of female drummers and a lot of very good female drummers. There's several in Springfield here as well. And so I was kind of a thing to come and see, because no girls played the drums. No girls played the drums, and no girls played the drums and sang at the same time. So it was an advantage for any band in that aspect. And I never had any problems with any members of the bands that I played in. Never had that issue as far as male-female kind of weird issues, I don't remember ever having to deal with that. But I did have two sticks, and I knew how to use them. If I had to. Yeah. So anyway, I can't really say anything negative about my experiences. Most of the bands I've played with have all been male individuals, and I've been the girl in the band. But now I have two girls. Now I have my daughter in the band, so now it's a wonderful thing, and I'm just enjoying it very much. So.
Are there any more questions? Oh. So you're all so versatile, and each of you has had a great story that you've shared with us tonight. But if you had your choices, what's each of your favorite genre to perform? Either alone or in front of folks. What's each of your favorite genre of music?
I'll start. Folk-inspired orchestral looping.
She was ready. I, however, am not. Wow, that's a really hard question. I have to say, I don't, and this is going to sound like a cop-out, but I really don't know that I can pick one. I feel like any music that you connect with is it. I feel like music is soul, it's the spirit, it fills you. I feel like whatever makes your heart beat in rhythm with it, that's what is intended for you. Performing, it's anything and everything. I'm connected to lyric. The lyric is extremely important, and the conveyance of such lyric is probably one of the either most natural things or one of the most difficult things to do. And for me, it's whatever lyric I connect with, regardless of genre, and you're going to move people. I don't know. That's just how I feel about it. I like everything. I love it.
Well, I'd have to say that, well, I played country music for several years, and Burl did as well. He toured and traveled with Razzie Bailey and Tommy Overstreet for some time on the road. And I love country music. I like, of course, I'm old school. I like the old country music better than I do the new country music. But that's not to say I'm demeaning that in any way. I do love the blues. I have come to love singing the blues because I feel it in my soul when I sing it. And I feel that I project that really, really well when I sing it because I really feel it. I feel the intensity of it and just the feeling of it. And so I would have to say blues is my favorite. Now, when I'm listening to stuff, I like classic rock. We sit and listen to a lot of videos on the TV. We like Eric Clapton and Little Feat. We love Little Feat. we're Little Feat fans, and so we do listen to a lot of different kinds of music. And I'm pretty much open to listening to some new stuff. You know, if I like it, I'll do it. If I don't, I won't. And that's just kind of how it is. I have to feel that. But I love the blues, and I can still sing a really good country song too. So.
Are there any more questions?